In this Dragonfly Creative class, you're going to master the art of sewing and finishing the universal inseam pocket. We'll be covering 4 different types of inseam pockets. We'll be covering plain, faced, flat piped, and zippered. These are the most popular inseam pockets, and they'll be a great addition to your repertoire. This class's kit includes patterns for cutting full-size pocket pieces, side seam pieces, piping, facing, and zipper. So if you're ready to learn and get creative, I look forward to seeing you in class soon. Hi, I'm Nick Coman with Dragonfly Creative, and today we're going to be doing inseam pockets. We've got 4 different kinds of inseam pockets to cover, and those are just plain inseam pockets. There is a faced inseam pocket, a piped inseam pocket, and then an inseam pocket with a zipper. What an inseam pocket is a pocket anywhere 2 seams come together. And that just means that you can slide something right in between those 2 seams. It's one of the easier pockets to install, and it's really useful. It can be installed in pants, dresses, jackets, skirts, basically anything you want to wear that has a seam or 2 seams meeting. So one of the things I've seen an inseam pocket used for that's a little more unusual is put inside the lapel or the front part of a man or woman's jacket, and it's just the size of a phone or a wallet or whatever it is that you want to have in there. Some of them even have zippers, and those would be a great passport pocket. So to start with, we're going to be doing an inseam pocket that's just a plain inseam pocket with no fancy stuff. Okay, this would be for pants, skirts, basic stuff. And this is usually when you are able to use the same fabric for your pockets that you are for your garment. Okay, it doesn't need any special hiding or anything like that. Okay, so let's get started. So here I have 2 pieces of fabric. This is going to be the front and the back of my garment. And then I have 2 pocket pieces, and this is taken from my pants pattern. This is the inseam pocket from my pants pattern. So what we need to do first is we need to go ahead and lay down these pockets even with the edge. And there will be notches to match things up on the actual pattern, any pattern that you come across. There will be notches or points or dots for you to match things up on. I have notches right here on my pattern, and I'll hold it up real quick so you can actually see that notch, and you see that little slit right there in the edge of the fabric. It's not a complete ½ inch, it's maybe 1/4 of an inch, and you want to do 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch, nothing more than that. Now, this is going to be laying the pocket piece on the fabric correct sides together, or right sides together. So if we have a print on this, the print's going to be up on the fabric, and then on the pocket piece, the print will be down. Okay, so we're doing right sides together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch that pocket down along the side seam, and we're going to just stitch to the bottom, and I'm going to use about 1/4 of an inch seam here. Okay, these are cut for ½ an inch seam, but we don't want to use the whole seam. So I'm going to cut 1/4 inch seam here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a thing called understitching, and what understitching is taking right along the seam a stitch about 1/16 of an inch wide, maybe 1/8, and I'm going to stitch on the right side of the fabric, but what I'm going to be doing is catching the seam allowance in that stitching. And that way, when I turn this around, that's automatically going to roll that seam slightly to the back. Okay? So let's go and understitch both of these pieces. So you want to make sure that you have the seam allowance towards the pocket. we want to stitch that seam allowance to the pocket body. You'll notice that I'm using my hands to slightly pull the fabric apart, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to keep that fabric nice and taut. I haven't ironed it, so I'm just going to pull that fabric apart so that the stitching is even. Okay, so both of those pocket pieces have been stitched down and then understitched. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the back pocket on top of the front pocket piece. So this would be the front of my pants, this would be the back of my pants. I'm going to line up the seams, line up the side seams, and then I'm going to stitch basically to the notch that I had cut in the side seam of the garment. So that notch is right about here. It's about 3 inches up from the bottom of the pocket. So I'm going to cut to that notch, and then I'm going to back tack, and I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm just going to stitch about 1 inch up at the top. And that will give us an insert point for the hand, an opening in the pocket. Now, like I said, this particular pattern piece is cut with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that's what we're going to be sewing. Now this would be starting at the bottom of the leg. So that's the bottom piece. Now we line up the top piece. So I have those 2 pieces stitched right along here, okay? And then there's an opening right there. So if I open this up, and that's the front of my pants right there, and the back is right there, you can see that I have an opening right here for a hand to go in. I'm actually going to give that a little bit of a press before we take it to the sewing machine and sew the pocket bags together. You want to make sure everything is nice and smoothed out. So now you can see that that's a nice smooth inseam pocket there. And now all we need to do is sew the bags together, okay? When you're sewing the pocket bags together, oftentimes what happens is during sewing the pocket bag can get stretched, or it can be just slightly misaligned. So you just want to smooth it out, and if it's not exactly even, don't try and force it. It's going to cause the pocket to twist if you force it. So just work with it as it is, and then if you have to do that to make yourself feel better, you can go back and trim it even. So if you actually look at this now, you can see that I stitched all the way around the pocket bag, and then what I did is I ran that stitching up to the side seam, and then I back tacked. What this is doing is this is giving us a space down here that has more fabric that is joined together, and this is going to give us a stronger pocket overall. So now we go ahead and flip this open again. Pulling the pocket into place. At this point, you would go ahead and attach a waistband or a yoga waist, something that's going to be holding the pocket into place. Okay, so if this is a faced waist, then you're going to just sew the facing to the right side. It's going to catch the top of the pocket, and you're going to turn it over, and that facing is still going to be free on one side, and then you'll still be able to get your hand in the pocket. So I'm just going to stitch this across the top like we would a waistband. And so now, not only have we finished the pocket bag, so nothing is going to fall out of it, but we've also closed the top by putting that waistband on it. So now we have a comfortable pocket in the side seam. Okay, now we're going to move on to our second pocket.
Thank you for watching this Dragonfly Creative class. If you'd like to see more content like this, head on over to dragonflycreative.art.